The good news is the bad news for them. We still outnumber them. And all this fear campaign about FEMA camps and the coming meltdown of America, and the death of the dollar, and the coming of the Amero and communist socialist hell for all the remaining people, is a real idea to fear. Because sitting here, we still outnumber them, the owners of the country, the people that are totally dominating us and oppressing us, the shepherds of the sheep. The Jewish shepherds of the Bible never really stop being shepherds. They just don't deal with actual sheep anymore. They deal with something a little bit more complex in the wool fleecing business. But don't be afraid. And it's still a country where you can speak your mind. Other countries, you speak out against them, they've set it up to be hate speech, racism. It's like, you know, they call someone who complains about what they do an anti-Semite, and you could just as justifiably turn to them, the ones that hate Christians, and call them anti-Christ, anti-Christians. Doesn't sound as mean, but anti-Christ, the anti-Christ, that's one that's just a pillar of salt. On fire. Satan. Anti-Christ. If you're against Jesus, you're anti-Christ. You are a anti-Christ, or the anti-Christ as your collective. Something hardly anyone ever figures out on their own. But don't be afraid. Stand together, you know, I mean, what makes me mad is like celebrities know exactly. They've met them. The leaders of the agencies that govern all of entertainment. They are all the descendants of the pirates of the Caribbean. The Jewish pirates of the Caribbean. They're descendants of the crew that was brought over by Columbus and John Cabot and all those other Jewish explorers that founded America, who stole gold from the Spanish when they were raping Mexico, and they melted it down and overlaid it over piles of coins that they had made, and did the exact counterfeit imprint on the coins, made 10 or 20 times their money, and they couldn't lose. They just couldn't lose. All that free money for trading, for commodities. And you factor in how smart they were with regard to business and tricking people, and once they got slavery rolling, then the money, you just can't calculate it. Even today, if you were lucky on the stock market with a penny stock that jumped to 20 bucks a share, you still would not make that kind of money. We're talking about an entire continental reality, all up and down the eastern seaboard, way before Washington, way before the Pilgrims of 1607. They were rich and ready to pounce. And that's part of history they never put in the books. The proof of these kinds of things are the anomalies of American life, like Las Vegas. Remember when gambling was, you know, outlawed except for Las Vegas? And then it slowly started to trickle around, and you'd see a river boat that was out of the river, but they would have a boarding time, and you're going off to sail and you couldn't get off the boat because of state law, and stupid things like that. Ridiculous theatrical things like that. That's the heart of all stupid American reality. Half of the Supreme Court is Jewish. You know, 9/11, that's just, if you don't understand that one, I don't know what to tell you. If you haven't actually figured it out on your own, or if you don't secretly know it and you haven't talked with anybody about it, there's something wrong with you. You've got a mental problem. It's like with the Mormons. You're either beyond repair stupid, or you're in on it, or you're evil. There's really, as far as the adult Mormons, you can't really count the kids because they haven't really matured, but the adults in the Mormon community, it's one or the other. You're an evil liar that knows that everything Joseph Smith said was a lie and a manipulation, or you're just stupid. And stupidity is the reason for so much of this corruption in America. It's the reason. It is the source of all of their wealth. That people, if you have a great job, and you own your own business, and you have your own stocks, and you're up and rolling with $100,000 salary and income aside from that a year, the government loves you because they can tax you 30 times a year, and you don't say anything about it. Your capital gains tax, your property tax, not to mention the sales tax that is always deferred onto you from the merchant of anything. So you really, if you got a good job and a good life, you're paying about 35 taxes to the government that goes straight to the interest paid to the Federal Reserve when they loan phony money to the government that they print out of nothing and laugh at everyone. And these European bankers and these descendants of the pirates of the Caribbean of America that live in secret, that own all the land and have the final word on anything, that's it. That 100 years between the last of Columbus's outposts in the West Indies and the beginning of what we call Puritan pilgrim life in Massachusetts and all that ridiculous stuff. Thanksgiving. Saving the pilgrims from the winter. Ha! God, people think that's when America started. No. That's when the fictional story of America started. George Washington was just as much of a puppet as Barack Obama. The guise of freedom and the Constitution, all that's just to sucker people into thinking this and that. Except when it comes for litigation, and the Jewish lawyer walks out on the floor and trashes all the laws by just a turn of a phrase. The law is what you argue it to be, and the jury is just a bunch of sheep going bah, bah. Whatever the persuasive person on the bench, they will usually scare the jury into saying what they want them to say, or bribe them. You think when the jury goes in a deliberation room, it's just them? No, someone walks in there and gives them some money, or they're all plants. Or if it's serious, if it's a serious trial, but they always try to create the illusion, maintain the illusion that there's justice, and sometimes it appears there's justice. People that win that you don't think can win, but it's just like pro wrestling, where it's all decided ahead of time, and it's just so unfortunate. People don't recognize it, and we've always outnumbered them, and we could stand together and say, that's what you're doing. We're not taking it anymore. You can maybe tax us for 2 things a year, but it's our money. We worked for it. And they have the gall with income tax to tax your wages. Like just some poor person going to work. The government still gets 30% of what they make. It's disgusting. I mean, think about it. The money you get from a wage is the value of your time being traded. It's not a profit. Like where you take rocks and glue them together and make $10. That's a profit. But when you exchange your time for a slave job, that's just a trade. You're just trading. It's not a profit. In fact, your time is worth more than what they're paying you, so you're taking a pay cut every time you go to work. The idea that you're taxed on that is absolutely ludicrous, and that 300 million people take it is a sign of the true state of intelligence of American people. Some people have fought the income tax, and it's been a barkable thing for years, and just the IRS itself, it's rooted in Puerto Rico, right where the pirates of the Caribbean have been for 500 years. It's their little company. It's their little gag, their little comedy show, and their access to kill you and abuse you however they want. It's not a legal entity, they're just criminals. Like the old idea of a caravan coming by a hill and the bandits wait on the other side of the hill and they run around the hill and they grab the caravan and say, pay tribute or else. We're taking everything. That's the foundation of most cities. We're at some caravan route like Jerusalem or Damascus. That was where originally someone was just hiding around a corner, around a hill, waiting for a caravan to come by to get free money. That's the IRS. That's the Pirates of the Caribbean. And nobody has ever stood up to them. They always were outnumbered. They don't want a big crowd. They don't want to be seen. They don't want to be known. And they bribe idiots who bribe idiots who bribe idiots to create this defensive wall to keep it in maintenance. And people take it. Not a single, they infiltrate all the universities, all the scholars are bought. Noam Chomsky will stand on a podium and say, Oswald killed Kennedy, that all conspiracy theories of 9/11 are mean you're a crackpot, he buys the idea of 19 Muslims crashing a plane into a building without realizing it's impossible for an aluminum tube to go through steel at any speed. The engines might make a dent, but it's very doubtful that even they, at that speed, even would go through the thick 4-foot by 4-foot steel uprights of the World Trade Center. The plane would have crumpled on the outside and fallen to the ground. Would not have gone all the way in without a single plane part falling to the ground. Physically impossible. And you got a guy like Noam Chomsky saying, yeah, that's what happened. Oswald shot Kennedy, even though that's physically impossible too. Even though John F. Kennedy had a heart attack. They stopped his heart with a radio wave. Then they shot him. And then they guaranteed that he was going to die. Everything's a hoax. The Watergate, anything you can name. The moon. Nobody's ever gone to the moon. It's impossible for human beings to walk on the moon. Impossible. I mean, they dare you to figure it out. These guys are walking around these stupid spacesuits. You're supposed to think that that little capsule has enough oxygen in it for 3 men to survive for 2 weeks. That nothing would go without a hitch on that landing to the moon when no one had ever done it before. Well, that'll start a hot debate, but really it boils down to stupidity and gullibility and a typical human reality that the Pirates of the Caribbean, the brilliant Jewish men that are descended from the band of Columbus who escaped Spain from the Alhambra decree of 1492, is just in full flourish now. Every bank rapes every customer, and every customer takes it. It's the only reason it happens. But you can stop it, as long as you just snap out of it and band together and fight.